So it's 11:30 sharp, so maybe we can start. It works? Ah, yes, it works. Okay, good morning. So 11:30, so it's just the time to start this networking or information session on what we call 5G long-term evolution. Not very much imaginative, based on 4G long-term evolution, 5G long-term evolution, so we don't invent much here. So my name is Bernard Barani, so I work in the DG Connect unit E1, which is the unit called Future Connectivity Systems, and which is in charge of the so-called 5G policy. So we have several calls on 5G technology developments and system demonstrations. And I will try to explain what this call is about and how it is placed in the overall 5G saga under the 5G public-private partnership. So 5G, as you may know, the activity or the research and development activity under Horizon 2020 has not been designed as a set of standalone, let's say, isolated calls, but we have tried to engineer the calls as a set of, let's say, linked type of activities which are implemented under the 5G public-private partnership. So the 5G public-private partnership is materialized through a collaboration agreement, which has been signed on the one hand by the Commission and on the other hand by the so-called 5G Infrastructure Association, which has today 52 members and which is helping us on the one hand upstream to define the research agendas, on the other hand downstream to exploit the result of the research and to make it such that the research project deliver more than one single set of results coming out of one single project, but can potentially be synergized across all the running projects to develop, let's say, collective outputs and things that can have more impact than simply at the level of one single project, such as in standardization bodies or in spectrum allocation bodies like ITU or in any other industrial fora that makes sense, where consensus is of the essence to make the technology acceptable and available to the markets. So we had a first phase in the early 2015, which was so-called phase one of the 5GPP, which was really looking into core technologies. Then we started phase two beginning of last year, so phase two projects are still running today as we speak. Oh, sorry. So these phase two projects are still running today, and they are already looking into applicability of the technology to vertical use cases and to some use cases through proof of concepts or core technology validation in dedicated use case scenarios. And now, this year, we have started the so-called phase three, which is based on a set of end-to-end 5G platforms, which are representative of, potentially representative of future 5G systems, on top of which vertical industries can implement trials and validate the technologies in the context of dedicated business case, but large-scale trials. So this is the phase three, which closed just 1 week ago, 2 weeks ago, and for which we will evaluate the proposals beginning of next year. And on top of this, let's say, activities which are built and constructed, let's say, sequentially and hopefully coherently, we have a topic which is called 5G RNI for long-term evolution. So this long-term evolution is more intended to look into the long-term future beyond the basic roadmap of 5G as it exists today in industry. So it's a little bit more open in terms of topics. And it is also aimed at also opening a little bit more opportunities to academics and research centers. 5G PPP, because it's an industry-driven initiative, it still is an industry-driven initiative, and the industry drive will still be important in this topic. 5G PPP implementation at this moment in time is implemented with a bit more than 60% of industry participation. So it's a huge amount of industry participation. So almost 65% of the budget that we are implementing today goes to industry. Of course, you can imagine that the academics are not so happy with this because they say, well, you need also to give some money to us. Here, we expect that there will still be a very strong industry participation. That's clear. But we also open longer-term ideas or things which can be a little bit further down in the overall technological roadmap, which is opening potentially rooms to very innovative ideas that may come from universities or research centers. So today we are basically here. So beginning of next year we will implement this, and then sometime towards the end of the next year we'll implement this one. So this is the overall setup of what we're trying to do. And this is just to give you some indication of what's happening now. 5G, as you might have heard, some people would say it's commercial. So it depends what you call 5G. But it's true that the standard for the very first version of 5G, which is basically EMBB, Enhanced Mobile Broadband, so super broadband type of use cases, the standard was already released, at least the early drop version, end of 2017, whilst the release 15, which is the first version of the standard, the first full version of the standard for the radio plus some additional aspects of radio, was delivered mid-2018. So we have already a number of technologies which are existing in the 5G domain, which are both for the so-called non-standalone option and the so-called standalone option. Non-standalone being 5G being controlled by a 4G core, whilst standalone being 5G being controlled by the full 5G core. So standards exist. Now, there are plans at the level of the standardization bodies to extend the standards under the so-called Release 16, and the standard extensions will primarily look into additional capabilities for the standards and for the technology to cover use cases more in the industrial domain. So primarily NR V2X. So V2X is one of the axes of development of the standard until end of next year. And another one is for use cases in factories, and you have also a number of enhancements which are planned in terms of massive MIMO usages or basic technologies that can help to realize the low latency type of things. So there are already a number of things which are happening, and of course, we don't intend to use public money to just do these type of things which are very short term. So here we look at least 5 years down the road what could be potentially interesting in technological terms for the future of 5G. So as I said, in terms of context, this operates still, and even though it's a little bit more open than the previous call, it still operates under the 5G PPP structuring initiatives, and this has some implication. I will tell about it. So I mentioned already the issues related to the 3GPP standardization bodies, what's happening in the standard. So clearly, we are looking into much beyond what Release 16 is going to offer. And we are placing this activity also in the context of what is being called now, okay, we don't call it 6G because it's not a kind of very politically correct type of technologies, but there are a number of organizations in the world now which are, at least at research level, looking into beyond 5G, and that's, let's say, the kind of framing type of concept we could use to characterize this call. So the call, as it is outlined in the text, it's supposed to answer or to correspond to what we call a challenge. So the challenge being basically to push the network into something which is even more than it is today, integrated in terms of computing, storage, and connectivity functions, to make the network really look like a cloud platform with all the capabilities and all the flexibility this can imply. Of course, this is not a new move. This is something which has already been initiated a couple of years ago with network softwareization, NFV type of technologies and these kind of things. But the idea is to, first of all, look at low energy, because this is something which comes very frequently from the operator side, and this is something that we have not so much looked into so far. So this idea of radically or drastically bringing down the energy consumption of networks, in our view, is an important potential drivers. And then looking at how the various processes which are needed to set up or to manage or to terminate a connection or a session is something that is in scope of this call. And we talk also about new terminal types, the idea being that in the future there will be many, many more connected terminals than smartphones or tablets. And this potentially has an impact on the level of flexibility and versatility that the network characteristics have to support. So this is really the overall framing envelope. In the call text, it is based on three strands, what we call strands. So one strand is on extension of virtualization technologies and architectures. So it comes with a number of, let's say, features, multi-tenancy, device heterogeneity, resource configuration, flexibility, and adaptability. So this is really the type of technologies that we are proposing to explore in more details in the context of having a network which is, on the one hand, more flexible in terms of reducing OPEX and potentially CAPEX, but also being more adaptive to new type of requirements coming from either new type of applications or new type of device. So that's the philosophy which is behind this strand. And here you may want to reuse all the buzzwords that we hear these days. If you bring artificial intelligence into network management, hallelujah, this is just very trendy these days. So the imagination is without limit here, because network management is typically something where, for instance, this buzzword of artificial intelligence could provide, I don't know, some advantages in terms of managing traffic or managing fault detections or security. So the second strand is on security. Security has a little bit of a special role here, because this is something that we have not necessarily very well covered in previous phases. So we know that, for instance, in 3GPP, I think it's the group SA3, the SA group number 3, which is looking into security. So they have already made quite a bit of work on security architectures and how security could be managed in, especially in virtualized networks, where we have a new type of technologies which are being brought into the network, and being more software, you could say, okay, if it's more software, it's more prone to attacks. That's a possibility. But at least this type of security work has been started. We had some projects, but not so many. And ideally, we would like to have something which is really taking us forward in terms of security. And this is really an area where we believe we have to make some, let's say, progress and be a little bit more ambitious than what we have done so far, especially when you take an end-to-end perspective with virtualization from the radio to the core. So this is the second strand, and the last strand is on potential improvements to the radio, and here again, the imagination can go far. We talk about potentially new architecture to support new type of network architectures, for instance, either mobile edge computing or moving nodes, or there are a number of new type of architectures that you can think of that may require some adaptations or, let's say, innovative technologies in radio side. and also new frequency bands, because this is something which now we start of exploring in the context of bands beyond 5G. So 5G bands today, if you look at the standard papers, the first version of the standard, it goes up to 52 gigahertz, I think, the first release 15. Then for the future, there are potential extensions around 90 gigahertz. But as far as I know, the roadmap of 5G as it is designed by industry with a view to deliver standards in the next few years does not go beyond 90 gigahertz. So we have already a few projects that go in terahertz domain. But this is probably a domain where we have to do more work, both from the point of view of the technology and from the point of view of the system. This is an area which is very much of interest to the regulators. For instance, the people on the regulatory side, we have a group in the Commission called the RSPG, Radio Spectrum Policy Group, which is composed of the high-level people from the national regulators in terms of frequency allocations. And they regularly ask us to provide the technological inputs on how, in the future, spectrum allocation, spectrum assignment, sharing, licensing, how this could be changed or be made more efficient, knowing that the operators, the regulators, these days, they have a heavy trend to go more and more towards spectrum sharing, which is not something that the operators necessarily love, especially when they have to pay extremely high costs for their licenses. But the regulators are very much interested in this type of things, so we believe research could be also a way to answer this type of questions. Now, in terms of the proposal that you may want to design, we don't have any particular religion here. If you want to submit a proposal that covers only one specific topic, network management, you believe, okay, this is network management, this is our turf, and you want to submit a proposal in this domain, just feel free to do so. If you prefer to make something more extensive that cuts across strands, for instance, security and radio, for instance, or security and network management, security and network management could be a good combination, for instance, because normally network management comes with security. But here we have itemized it specifically because we believe that we need to give a little bit of boost to this type of activities. So feel free to do so. Proposals can address one strand, two strands, or three strands. It's really as you like. We have no particular position on that. So in terms of expected impact, this is something which is important that you should read maybe more carefully, because as you may know, when we evaluate the proposals, we ask the evaluators to look into three classes of criteria. So the first class is technological excellence. The second class of criteria is more on the implementation that relates to the consortium, the adequacy of the consortium, the budget which is requested, these kind of things. And the third criteria is expected impact. And expected impact has no generic meaning. It depends on the call. Of course, if you are in a call for robotics or if you are in a call for 5G, the expected impact is not necessarily the same. So the text that you find in the call, which is qualifying the expected impact session, is primarily looked at is the text that we ask the evaluators to use to address if the proposal has the impact which has been identified or not. So we talk about evolution of networks towards OTT-like platforms. That's the overall idea of softwarization of network and integrating more the computing, storage, and connectivity type of resources, and how we can move technology into this kind of integrated platforms. So network scalability, as we said, it's based on the idea that in the future there will be more requirements coming from more application, more device capabilities, more use case capabilities. Knowing that with 5G, we started with this idea that instead of having a network which was, as in the past, a kind of a one-size-fits-all platform, the network in 5G, hopefully in future, is able to adapt to the specific requirement of one particular use case. So in principle, a tenant has the capability to configure the network slice the way he really wants for the specific capabilities of its own use case. So characterization and availability of secure and trusted environment. So this is something which is related to the activity on security that we are calling for. Improvement of radio spectrum usage, dynamic scalability of network capabilities, and network energy consumption is the first one that I mentioned when starting this presentation. So these are the, let's say, the rough classes of impacts that we're expecting. One more thing that you may want to take into account, but it cannot be used as a criterion for evaluation because it's not in the call text. So normally, the call text is really the driver, and we have to evaluate the proposals against what is in the call text. But since we published this call, there is a new situation, if I may say so, which is the preparation of Horizon Europe, the next framework program that comes from 2020 onwards. So for which we have already looked into some orientations. So for the future Horizon Europe type of activities, our intention is to place these 5G or beyond 5G related type of activities under the NGI, Next Generation Internet umbrella. So Next Generation Internet is a kind of, overarching type of umbrella. And this Next Generation Internet will have a number of activities, including this type of activities. So you may want to look also into the Next Generation Internet type of activities to look into potential requirements that could emerge on future platforms if you have the curiosity to do so. But again, don't feel obliged because this is not something which is in the call text, so it cannot be used as an evaluation criteria. So we cannot say this proposal does not conform to the user-generated internet or the user-friendly internet of NGI, so it's not in scope. So that we will not do this kind of statement. Now, in terms of budget, you may know that originally we proposed about double of this budget. We proposed about 90 million euros for this call, but we could not because there was not enough budget available over the 2018-2019 period. So the call, to a certain extent, is split between this call, and there will be a next continuation of this call. At least this will be our proposal to the member states to continue this in a second phase in the work program 2020. So be aware that there are opportunities in this call, but there should be also opportunities in the call covered by work program 2020, for which we will start the first set of discussion with the member states this afternoon, if I understand well. So we have said that, yes?
Just to understand correctly, so this is already fixed for this call?
Yes, 44 million.
Roger call is aligning this focus with an additional budget?
With a similar focus, complementary to that call, will come in work program 2020. So this is not the end of the road. There will be follow-up opportunities for this call. So we have identified originally what we used to call in the past STREPs, so STREPs-like budget, 4 to 6 million euros. But again, this is really indicative, and it really depends on the level of ambition that the project is conveying. I mean, if there is a larger proposal with very, let's say, ambitious type of scopes that covers all the strands, which has potentially a high impact in terms of framing the future of B5G. I think why not considering a higher budget. So this is just indicative. And again, this is not what we call an eligibility criteria. That means if a proposal is more than 6 or less than 4, it will be considered for evaluation in its own merits. So type of action, research and innovation action, which means that the funding rate is 100% of direct cost, as you probably know. Deadline 28th of March 2019. And one thing which is important is the so-called 5GPP implementation. As I indicated at the beginning, we place this call under the 5GPP umbrella, which means that we expect collaboration across the 5GPP projects. So the collaboration subject is not fixed. So you are free to select a subject of collaboration. For instance, if you want to collaborate on future radio standards, for instance, and there are a number of projects which are interested in future radio standards, then you can set up an activity on that. What we request as a minimum is that the projects participate to the so-called technical board and the SB, the steering board. Well, I was looking for the word. The steering board and the technical board. So the technical board and steering board is composed by the managers or the coordinators of the projects, chaired by someone from the industry association, and the technical board is composed of the technical managers of the project and chaired by Didier, who is here, who will make some statement probably at the end of this presentation. So this is important to help us having a kind of overall cartography of what is being implemented under the 5GPP, what is contributing to the various aspects of 5G or a future network type of infrastructures, and how we can leverage the results, and how we can plan ahead for future type of activities, such as joint demonstrations or joint showcasing across the projects. So don't neglect this. This is something that has worked pretty well so far. So we really have a good cooperation or links across the implemented projects these days, and we can have very good cartography. For instance, this was very useful, this mechanism was very useful, or is still very useful for the implementation of the phase 2 to help us getting a complete cartography of what the 5GPP contributes to various use cases. So we have now a much clearer picture of what we contribute for automotive, what we contribute for energy, what we contribute for factories, what we contribute for PPDR or whatever type of use case. And this is quite interesting to frame the overall envelope of the activity and see what are the potential gaps and what are the potential synergies as well. So again, don't underestimate the idea that we are not just implementing one project, which is a standalone fire and forget type of project. It's not the idea. The idea is that there is real implemented collaboration across the implemented projects. So this is a so-called new topic, because the NCP member states colleague, when we made a presentation to the MCP, they asked us, is this a new topic or is this a continuation of the topic? So this is a new topic in its own. It may capitalize on previous topics in the 5G PPP. For instance, we had an ICT 9 2017 call on networking research beyond 5G, under which you find a couple of implemented projects which are mostly looking into terahertz or some specific architectural issues. Or previous PPP phases, but it's really as or if needed as you like. If you want to capitalize on previous PPP developments, fine. But again, it's not a must. It's certainly not a criterion for evaluation. And I'm saying this because in the last few calls that we have had, we made a clear call to have relations between the various phases. So in phase 2, we asked the proposals to capitalize on phase 1 developments. In phase 3, we asked the proposal to, insofar as possible, capitalize on phase 2 developments. In the trial set of projects that we are going to implement now, we asked to capitalize on the platform projects that we implemented earlier on. So this is not the philosophy of this call. This call is more standalone, and you don't need to link into past activities necessarily to make the case of your ideas. Voilà, so additional information. So you can find information on the 5GPP website, which will give you an idea of what is implemented so far and what are the short-term plans. You have to be aware, maybe one piece of useful information is that this call text is very much based on the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, which was published by the Networld, the European Technology Platforms, a bit more than a year, almost 2 years ago. And this is the link to this document. If you want to identify the source of inspiration of this call, you will find a good part which is related to this call in the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda that was published by the Networld, the technology platform. And here you will find, because of course in a call we have a limited space, so we can only put a few sets of ideas. But in the SRIA, you will find a more extensive description of the justification for these research topics. And of course, you have the participants portal, which is also a source of information for all the practicalities on how to submit a proposal. So with this, I'm over and ready for any kind of question you may want to ask us. So I understand maybe you want to make your announcement now. Yes, because we have an announcement from a colleague from the member states. So I will give you the floor.
Yes, hello, I'm Edina Németh. I am the national contact point from Hungary, and you've probably seen many other people at the event in these beautiful green shirts. We're all national contact points. There's one of us, at least in each EU member and associated state and beyond, and we offer a whole set of services for free to help you prepare your proposals. And today I just want to raise your attention to one of them. We offer proposal idea checks, and we do it at this event. So it's ongoing until 1 o'clock up in room 213. So if you have a proposal idea, you can get feedback from an experienced national contact point upstairs. Just show up on the fly and the first available national contact point will be with you. Okay, and we offer full proposal checks later on, 1 month before the call deadline.
The booth is on the ground floor, I think.
The booth is on the ground floor, but the proposal idea check we are doing on the second floor in 213. There are some flyers, it's written on here by the exit. Okay?
Fantastic.
Thank you.
So thanks a lot. Many, many thanks. And again, that's another opportunity which is offered to you thanks to the coordination across member states. So if you want to make use of it, don't hesitate. I don't know, Didier, if you want to make additional remarks on what I said.
I don't know, yeah, maybe some questions.
Okay. Let's try to take some questions then.
I have a question between strands. If a proposal chooses to cut across between at least 2 strands, is the requirement to address all requirements for each strand?
If you cut across 2 strands, you can address part of a strand and part of the other strand. That's your choice. That's perfectly your choice. And then we will see the coverage that we have when we go to the panel of the evaluation. Because normally what happens is that when we evaluate the proposals, we have a panel which ranks the different proposals, and we have a mechanism to solve what we call the tight scores. So if 2 proposals have the same mark, which one comes first, which one comes second? And the first criterion to make the distinction is primarily on coverage. So if there is something which is not covered, we check if it is covered in another proposal. So the coverage, it's not mandatory if you want to cover a strand that you cover the totality of the strand, but what is mandatory is that you explain why you have this focused coverage of the strand, and you explain that the resource that you associate to the activities is commensurate with the effort that you are limiting to part of the strand. That's the idea.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, hello, Roberto Riggio, Fondazione Bruno Kessler, Italy. You made clear that this action is not required to capitalize on previous phases. I was curious to know if you could comment how much projects can be disruptive in terms of concept, how much can go beyond the 3GPP standardization, in your opinion?
I mean, At the end of the day, as I tried to explain at the beginning, is that we are in an industry-driven program. So what needs to be made sure is that whatever the level of disruption that you propose in your proposal, you have a clear path on how this can be exploited and what would be the industry that would benefit from that. So for instance, if you come to us and you say, well, we have a super nice concept of networks, like in IoT, we get rid of the SIM card, and the SIM card does not exist anymore. So all the operators will not like your business model, but it will be very disruptive. So you have to explain how this disruption is going to be taken up by some industrial interest and some use cases. And we are open to different type of business models. So we are not tied by the telco or by the XYZ type of business models. So that's the reason why it's called long-term type of evolution. So we expect that at the end of the day, there are potentially other opportunities. And we see it already happening with 5G. 5G now starts or permeating into vertical type of use cases, which are not necessarily aligned on the telco business model. So even though the activity has its roots in telecommunication, we can see some disruption coming from potential users which don't necessarily have the same business model as the one of, let's say, the historical actors of 3GPP. So what is really important is that you can be as disruptive as you want, but that you say how industrially speaking this is going to be exploited and what are the industrial opportunities and the economic opportunities behind. Because if it is just exploratory research for the sake of exploratory research without having any clue how it is going to impact any possible market, there you should go to FET for this type of activities. I hope it's not too unclear. Voilà. Someone from industry will explain.
Thanks, Bernard. Thanks for the question. So a few words. So Didier Bourse-Nokia, I'm chairing the technology board and the trials working group in the PPP. So you have understood that for the time being, the work program, we are addressing ICT 2019. From the association perspective, we have started to work on a so-called pre-structuring model for this last part of the PPP. So you may know that there was a phase 1 pre-structuring model, phase 2. We have addressed the first part of the phase 3. So it was for ICT 17, the platform, ICT 18, the corridors, and ICT 19, the vertical pilot. So globally, 200 million euros. So we have published this as a recommendation. Again, this is clearly not, let's say, an official document seen from the Commission perspective and from the reviewer as an official document before the review. But this is a recommendation from the PPP, from the association, from the different stakeholders towards the community. This is worked out with the community on what could be ideal portfolio of projects. So basically, we don't touch at all proposal. We look at ideally what we think is important to be addressed as future projects in the coming phase. So for the time being, the plan was to release the pre-structuring model for the last phase of the PPP already, but we are waiting also for the draft work program from the Commission for the work program 2020, addressing not only ICT 2019, but also ICT 2020. So what Bernard mentioned, the next step, and also our understanding, additional strategic objective on innovation, 5G innovation, plus 5G core technology, and a priori what we understand, also additional project on a priori corridors. So basically the target is we have started, and this is an important point for all of you, answering the question. We have started to define what could be this ideal set of projects. So in the context of the PPP and the association, there is a vision working group where we have started this work. And basically, with all the experience that we have gained in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3.1, we take the text from the work program, so the 3 strands, the expected impact. We look, as Bernard explained, what is missing, what is important for Release 16, Release 17, and we plan to provide, let's say, a specific analysis, so what we call this model, identifying what could be the targeted action. So what could be the project, the future project, describing the rationale, the objective, the scope, and the expected impact one by one. So on the question, for instance, when you look at the strands with the network management, virtualization, security, and radio signal processing architecture, one of the work that, the action that we have started to brainstorm on is what are the priorities, what is the balance, potential balance we expect between we expect between 7 to 11 projects. If you look at the boundary condition, you have the budget, you have between 4 to 6 million euros, so we expect between 7 to 11 projects. So basically, do we recommend, because security was not so much addressed so far in the PPP, that there could be ideally, let's say maybe 4 projects on security, and so on and so forth. So we work on this, trying to identify what are the key expected thematics to be addressed. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. So just to make you aware that these pre-structuring model initiatives from the 5G Industry Association can be also an interesting reference for framing ideas if you believe that you have ideas that fit within this pre-structuring model of the Infrastructure Association. So any other question? Là-bas derrière? Ouais. No, over there. He was first. Okay.
Yes, just a little question. I heard that this call was intended also to balance a little bit the fact that the 5G PPP was very much industry focused and driven, to have a call which was more research and academic driven. Is it the case, or are the evaluators more industry selected focus, or is it more the pure research on long-term 5G evolution? Again, can we really have a disruptive approach versus what is developed by the 5G PP analysis? Or is it a kind of continuation of, I would say, incremental approach?
Again, it can be disruptive. The only, as I tried to explain, the only requirement is that it fits within a potential exploitation capability at the level of the industry, which is reasonably well identified in the proposal. I was mentioning this idea of being maybe more open to academics in relative terms, because if I look at the previous 2 calls that we have launched, especially the one on platforms, which was ICT 17. ICT 17, even though it was labeled as a RIA research type of project, was really intending at setting up a pan-European 5G-like platform for test and use cases. And obviously, you cannot deploy such a pan-European platforms if you don't have connections to the equipment manufacturing of these type of equipments. I mean, it's very difficult to do that. So there was clearly a certain industrial framing within this set of proposals. Now it's not the case anymore. We are not asking you to come up with Release 15 equipment, which would already limit the potential partners that you can embark into your project, because there are not hundreds of companies which can give you or which can make available a Release 15 type of equipment. You have to go through a certain set of pre-identified companies which are already working in this domain. Here it is not the case. I mean, if you want to work in a little bit more open style, it's perfectly possible. So I think it's research in the classical sense of what we used to finance in the past, with the caveat that, again, it has to be linked to the 5G PPP implementation. That means we will be a little bit, how should I put it, we'll be a bit, not strict, it's not the word, but we'll carefully look into the collaboration intentions of the projects. Again, we try to avoid projects which are standalone projects. Say, okay, I have my project implemented, my contract, and then the rest of the world, I don't care. So this is not what we want. And the second thing is that, again, be as disruptive and as innovative as you want, but just tell us in which context this is going to be used, and this is going to be to find a market, to find an application. So I think there was a question with the gentleman with the shirt.
Thank you. It's a clarification. If I heard you right, did you say that security was not a focus in in many previous projects, and up to 3-4 security projects would be nice. Did you say that? Oh.
We are working on
No, we don't predefine the number of projects per
No, no,
strands. The industry does the price structuring model. They identify what they would like to see as interesting type of projects. But this, as he says, this is a recommendation, and we will not, from a commission side, we will not say that in security we want 3 projects, in radio we want 1 project, and in network management we want 1.5 projects. So this is not, this is part of the evaluation process to determine the remaining set of projects.
If I may take it, so clearly you have the text from the work program that is the official basis, and what we are working on, and this is work in progress, this price structuring model is to define what again could be this ideal set of future project, and we will propose this. This is work ongoing, so we will propose this recommendation, and we will have a version 1.0.
Eventually, what it gives you an indication of the competition that you will have to face from the industrial players.
But it will not influence the selection process. So what you are doing has no influence.
No, it influences the post-mortem evaluation process, because once we have finalized the evaluation, we compare what we have selected with what industry was proposing as the ideal case. And we see how far we match or we don't match. I think in the last... No.
It's a recommendation. It's a recommendation on how we see what is needed.
Yeah, but the question is, does it influence the selection process?
No. Again, no, no. It's not taken as a baseline document for the evaluation. It's not a legal document for the evaluation. Are we over? Or? Yeah, I think time is over for this session. So many thanks for your patience, and enjoy the proposal submission. Thank you.